so here's a little bit of stuff about me. You know, I do a lot of stuff, so they keep giving me awards and all that stuff, but it's nothing fancy. You know what? I really want to take all this away, and I actually wanted to be a dropout. I can't do that anymore. Because, you know, look at all the famous people in the world. They're all college dropouts, you know, like Steve Jobs, what is the Microsoft guy, Bill Gates, you know, Zuckerberg. Take any famous guy, right? And I'm like, take all this away and take my master's degree away. And the only reason I did it, and I did not become a dropout, was because I wanted a visa. Otherwise, I would have taken all this away and become a college dropout. Tell me, seriously, this is one thing, if I could change back in my life, I might actually get into a PhD program to do that. Drop out a PhD, you know, something. So anyways, agenda for today, we're going to talk about NoSQL basics. Now see, every talk I go to, you know, here's what happens. There's a bunch of these smart folks that are called advanced, you know, experts, and they're sitting in the talk. Trash. This was just a beginner level talk. I didn't get anything out of it. Well, and there's a lot of the beginner folks that are like, oh man, he was just doing all the advanced stuff, you know, I didn't get anything out of it here. So what I'm going to try to do is cover everyone, you know, and what happens when you try to help everyone? You help no one. So the expectations are set, right? You already know the talk's not going to be good, but we're friends here, right? If anything goes wrong, email me, and if it's a great talk, Twitter about it. You know my Twitter handle there, right? All right, so we're going to talk about NoSQL basics, Node.js, Express, Angular, MongoDB, and then we're going to talk about NoSQL advanced concepts. Also have a podcast. I haven't done one in 1.5 years, but still valid, pretty legit, you know, pretty latest and greatest. You should still listen to it. Sign up for a free draw. Now what you get is any JetBrains tool for free. It could be a ReSharper, PyCharm, WebStorm, or whatever. So if you go over here, I do this every month. You just sign up once a month, and I tweet about it. This is ChanderDhall.com/codecamp. It's going to require your email. There's no point putting a fake email. That guy's going to get the ReSharper. Blog. I have a blog over here. And then we're hiring devs in Dallas. API devs, NoSQL or SQL, if you're comfortable with any of the two, but you are an API dev, we want to hire you. But we're mostly looking for UI devs. JavaScript rock stars, you know, or you want to be a rock star, we're looking for you. Let me know. The promise is if you make it through the interview process, we'll pay you $10,000 more than what you're making, and we'll probably give $1,000 to the user group. How about that? Does that sound good? Do something for the user group. Awesome. So mean stack is Microsoft Entity Framework, ASP.NET, and .NET. You guys are here for that, no? You guys are here for that? No? Okay, well, this is what we're going to talk about. Don't worry about it. So why is it the meanest stack ever, right? I mean, so think about this. Someone wanted to be mean to Oracle, so they're just like, hey, let's just create this MongoDB, and who cares about Oracle, right? And then valued it so big that it wasn't even a product until like a couple of maybe releases before. You know, it's like, have you heard of the joke about Mongo? So the joke was Cassandra is good at writes, Elasticsearch is good at reads, Mongo is good at deletes. Would delete your data all the time. And it wasn't a joke, it was real serious. You know, I mean, like that was Mongo. Express, I mean, it's just another framework. What's the big deal about it? Angular, we all know that they publicly admitted that they have 400 memory leaks, and they are in what is it? Angular 2.0. They're actually going to not even have model binding. So, you know. You still want to continue with the talk. And then what's the fourth one? Node.js. Yeah. So why did Node.js become popular? Does anyone know? Because everyone came up with the tagline, we're non-blocking, but no one actually blocks. Does anyone know? They say Node is non-blocking IO, but actually it blocks. It was the biggest scam in our industry in the last 5 years. And they only work on one processor, right? And here's I got my 32-core CPU. Oh yeah, but you know what? I can only work on this one thread. That was the genius of Node. That's why it's the meanest stack ever. Anyways, it has some good points to it. We're going to discuss those too. Hang on. So the first thing is Node.js. We're going to talk about that. So it's server-side JavaScript. One real advantage is that you can actually write server-side JavaScript. That's very good. You know? High-performance network applications framework. So jokes apart, Node is actually very good at I/O to the browser. It might not be the best thing for computation. So when you have something with computation, you want to use F#, or you want to use C#, or even Java, you know, Python or whatever. But you don't want to use Node at that time because JavaScript. It's basically JavaScript, nothing else right now. Now keep in mind, Node is written in 40% C code, and it's got 60% JavaScript code. But at the end of the day, it's not a computation-oriented thing. Why? because it also works on one thread. So that's another problem. You can't have multiple threads, right? But it's very good at I/O processing, and it does it better than .NET or any other thing out there. So it's got its use cases. So what would you want to use it for? When you have significant amount of load in your website, you want to use Node. But if it requires computation, what would you do? You can write an API to something else. It could be a C#, F#, or whatever. You know, expose that API and still do the I/O through Node. So Node is amazing. What about the different? Oh wow, I forgot. This is Chander Dhall calling, by the way. Do you guys know who Chander Dhall is? He's the guy who created Node, and he spoiled my last name. So we got the same last name, but my checks come in as DAHL. And you know what? The bank clears them. I have no idea. my checks come in as Chander DAHL, which are both wrong, and the bank clears them all the time. I'm telling you, Americans are not good at spelling. So, event-driven, non-blocking I/O model, and then single-threaded. Now, here was the tagline that actually made Node popular. That tells a lot about our industry. That developers really don't want to do the work on their own. So they look for a framework that is actually amazing. It's, oh yeah, this is going to make me write the same code I've been writing, the same old dirty code for 10 years, and automatically scale it. Wow, all of a sudden Node had a lot of GitHub watchers, right? But do you know that Node started with Linux, and Linux actually did not do non-blocking I/O the right way? Actually, Windows did it a lot better, and even now, I mean, Windows is actually better at it. However, the Node implementation of Windows is not as good as the one in Linux. Did anyone know that Windows did async I/O way before Linux did? It's probably the only thing Microsoft can ever boast of. I mean, or maybe copy-paste, that's what they do. All the time, right? That was the only good invention they ever had. Anyway, so event loops, we all know what event loops are. Anyone? Good here? Next slide. Is that a yes or no? So in India they say that, keeping quiet, silent is half yes. The guy just smiled over there, So if you meet a woman for the first time and say, hey, you want to go out on a date with me, and she's quiet, the Indian's going to assume that you're saying a yes. So please, you've got to give me a yes or no, because if you keep quiet, I'm going to keep switching the slides. So where are we?
No.
Yes? Okay, let's go. So what about this one? Is that a yes? So you've got a client, and then do you like the automation, the animation? So you don't have to. It's okay. So client send HTTP request to Node.js server. That's the one main thread, right? So it's like Chander Dhall was one day cooking food. So he's the guy who created Node, and he goes, hey, when I cook food, here's what I do. I put in this pot, and it's boiling water here, right? And then I go and cut certain things. I don't stay for this thing. And you know what .NET does? Oh, the water is boiling 4 minutes. I'm right here. Water boiled. And then it goes right here. Let me just cut the vegetables, right? Same with Java. Can you believe this? They've been doing this for years. And we were proud of being Java and .NET developers until Node came and they're like, oh, we can boil the water. And we can actually go cut the vegetables. We can be back. We can do this all the time, right? So that's what event loop actually does. That's what they're doing. So what it does is basically passes on the slow request to something else. So I've got a database call. I'm the guy, right? Boil the water. Okay, go do it. When you're done, let me know, because when you're done, I'm going to take it and send it back to the browser. That's what Node is really good at. So that's what makes async I/O really good, right? Now you can block it. I'll explain that later. But for now, all the long-running jobs are on this thread, which is the worker thread. And that's actually C++. So when the response is sent back to the main thread, which is this guy who's actually the chef or the cook or whatever, he gets it, and then he sends it back to the browser. So what's the advantage? Your UI is not really blocked. And your server resources are not used in waiting forever. So you can scale pretty quickly, right? So that's how LinkedIn came back from a Java implementation of 50 servers and got to like less than 10 servers on their mobile app by just using Node. And a lot of people do criticize Node for saying that, what happened? I'll go. That's fine, I can go on. The show is over, guys. Thank you for being here. You can clap. Some people just clap, nice people, right? So I just needed a water break, so I did it on purpose. So anyway, so the idea is that you could actually have a lot of these servers. And you can really have this one big server, or you can have commodity level servers, and you can have a load balancer in front of it, and you can actually have multiple servers from Node. You could still do it, whatever you wanted to do with, multiple CPU or whatever. Oh, that guy slept. Probably use the Node principle of multitasking. This is a deliberate attempt to ruin the image of a presenter. But that's okay. I'm used to it.
I got a question in the meantime.
Yeah.
Not one that Bill can.
I will only charge you $100 an hour. How about that?
Yeah, sure, no problem. I'll ask anyways, right? That's free. So you said that it's scalable, and I'm trying to understand this API. I'm a browser. I send this Node.io request or whatever. The way that I'm seeing it is that there's a single thread running over there, right? So say for example, I have like 100 clients or something like that, and 100 clients are sending me messages at the same time. Is the single thread servicing all the 100 clients?
Exactly.
So how is it scalable?
Right? That's exactly what it is. So that was the whole thing, and you can actually block it, and you can try that. You can actually block it by actually having more requests than it can actually handle, and you can block it. That's why you need to scale it with load balancers.
Are you still mirroring to the other? Or did we lock up your laptop?
I think something is going wrong. Well, that's because it's a Mac, and I'm a Microsoft MVP. The whole idea was to show you don't buy a Mac. And the reason I have one is because I can run Windows on it. That's it. Alright.
Right?
So let's talk about politics since we don't have this anymore.
I'll take a 5-minute bio break to figure it out.
So the way Macs work is like every time you have this request, go to Steve Jobs, he approves it, and then it comes back, right? So right now that's the situation. But with Steve not there anymore, you never know how long it's going to take. So
Since Bill Gates is God, he's not going to let the request get to heaven.
see, I'm sure about Bill Gates, but not sure about God. So, don't get any opinions about my religion here. Don't worry about it. That's just a joke. So, cool. It even tells me where I was last time. Okay, let's go there. Let's see if it works. Let's find out if there's a plug in PowerPoint. So it looks like there is. Keeps going back over there. Anyways, so let's just show you a little bit of what do you want to see? You want to see Node first? Everyone's clear that actually Node blocks, and they keep saying it's non-blocking I/O, but that's what it is. A year ago, I went to the Angular team. I'm like, you have a lot of memory leaks. They would not agree with me. They did not agree. And what happened? Something's really wrong. Can't even use anything. So, but they later publicly admitted that they actually have that many memory leaks. So same with Node, it actually does block, and you can try on your own. Just exhaust the resources, and it's actually going to block. But again, it's really fast and efficient, so don't get me wrong. I mean, Node's really good for a lot of things that it does. So the traditional I/O, if you look at it, this is how it works. When you look, it's more like procedural coding. So you've got this one line, and the next line is going to execute. It's going to wait as long as you make the database call. It's waiting. When you get the results, then it executes the next line, right? In case of Node, here's what happens. You send that call, and you were waiting for the result, but this is executing the new line. So if something depends on that result, if this guy depends on anything from that result, then you have to put it somewhere here and say .continue with, or execute it over there. You can't put it over here. Just imagine there was a counter, and you wanted, okay, well, select X from table or whatever, or select star from table, count star from table, and give me what the count is. And by the time it gets the thing back, it actually got you the value X, which was actually 0. But since this request is taking time, this guy will only get 0. This guy won't actually get the count. So if you really need the count, you have to go within this method and then go to the success field and then get that thing. So that's the major difference. That's a challenging thing you have to understand when you're writing code in Node, because it's something we're not used to, because we think in terms of procedural code, right? Is everyone clear on this one? You being quiet as half yes? Let's do a demo. So let's just see if this works. So Node, basically you could do JavaScript code here. So when I just go, so I've installed Node, very simple, MSI done, great. You can actually write JavaScript code here. The moment you type in Node, oh wow, you give the right answer. That doesn't look like JavaScript. This is giving that answer I expect. So this looks like it's .NET. But JavaScript is when you actually write something serious and it actually doesn't work. For example, isn't that JavaScript? Now I know that this is JavaScript, right? Everyone follows this? Have you ever tried this?
Yeah.
Do not even try to do mathematics with JavaScript. It's even worse than I am, or I used to be, whatever. So you know why this is happening, right? But it's actually real JavaScript code because it's smart. Only JavaScript knows that 0.1 plus 0.2 is equals to 0.30000 all the way to full. So this is the way you figure out this is actual JavaScript, right? Anyways, so let's see some code here. A lot of people come out of my talk is like, which one was the concept and which one was a joke? But this is actually a bug in JavaScript. Just be careful, right? I mean, if you really have to check, make sure that you go to up to 2 digits. And let's start from something really basic. We're gonna call it what? What do you guys? Dallas? You call yourself Dallas? What do you call yourself? HTML fibers? Whatever it is, it's all good things, right? So when you want to start something, the best way to do it is go here. So now you can actually start a Node project on this too, but I want you to see from scratch how this is built. Let's go and see any directory. And keep in mind, my resolution is really bad, by the way. So I'll need a lot of your help. So all you do is go and say npm init. When you install Node, you actually get npm by default. npm is Node Package Manager. You can get all the utilities you want. And I'm just going to keep saying enter because I really don't care what it comes with, as long as it gives me what I want, which is, it didn't give me that.
You did it in System 32, Systems.d2.
What happened?
Wrong directory.
You ran init in Windows System 32.
Oh yeah. That was just to make sure you guys are paying attention. So cool, it's done. That works. Otherwise we could have blamed it on this guy too. So now we have this, right, which is awesome. So the next thing we're gonna do is go and create a file. Let's just say JavaScript file. Server. And then come in here and do a console.log. Let's just say hello HTML5. Alex. And that's it. So if I go ahead and do node server, it writes console.log. Done. We're done with the demo right here. That's awesome. So now this is pretty cheap. This was not a good demo at all. So we got to do something real, so that you believe in what I'm talking about. So what we're going to do is we're going to get Express. Express is one of the middle, Express is more like an MVC framework, right? Model View Controller framework for Node. So what we're going to do is node npm install Express, and then I'm going to say save because it saves it to my package.json file automatically. By the way, how do I have internet here? That's good. Cool. So it'll work. So if you come in here, it doesn't look like it. You see it? The save part didn't work. Well, we got the package.
There it is.
Oh no, it did work. Okay, there's a lag. I'm faster than the computer, right? We're all smart human beings. We're faster than the computer. All right, great. So we got this guy right here. So the next thing we do is call this guy. So we want Express. And to get anything, I don't know, whatever languages you've been doing, you have to require, so you need this. This is a dependency. All you do is come in here and say, okay, Express. Once you get this, the next thing is, again, this is JavaScript. I'm initializing variables here. I'm just going to call this guy. So I have access to Express now. So if I come in here, I can say app.listen, and I'm just going to hardcode the port that I want it to listen to, and then put a function. In this function, all I'm going to say is console.log listing at port 3000. That's pretty much it, I guess. So when I come in here, I need another command prompt. Copy that thing again. Coming here, what are we going to do? We're going to try to run this. Well, we can run it like that too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a node utility, Nodemon. Because every time I go back to save my file, and then I have to go run node again. We don't want to do that over and over again. So with Nodemon, you get that benefit. But when you do use Nodemon, you actually have to write .js. You can't just write server. So now Nodemon is going to make sure that it starts, and every time I make a change, it's going to restart my server, right? So I come in here. This guy's listing. Let's see. It says listing at port 3000. So I go to my browser. Cannot get. Why did that happen? It actually worked. It's not a bug. Because all I wanted you to see was, where's the console.log? Well, we can fix it. Maybe it's looking for this guy. This guy's going to give it nothing. You know why? Because I don't write anything in it. So let's just say res.send file. And in this case, I wanted to send a file back, which is an HTML file. So what I can do is I can say express.static, which is really going to take my static file and put it over there. I come in here, let me create one file. Let's just say, what are you going to call this? Client. Inside client, I have a view folder, or maybe I would have been better off calling it views folder, but that's fine. And let's put an index.html file. So now I have a file that I can serve through my server. I come in here, express.static. Trust me on this, let's try to make it work, but then I'll explain what's going on. Right here, client view index.html. Undefined is not a function. It's going to be really hard to debug with that green resolution. So anyone can see what's going on here? I can't even see the whole code here. Undefined is not a function. So basically it's a
Express required.
You have node modules is missing.
which one?
Node underscore modules. So you go to your output. Your dir name is one up from where it should be. There's like, if you look at the output message, it's looking for /Dallas/node underbar modules /express line. Is that?
Where do you
or is
see
that?
it?
No, that's not it. Wrong message.
Well, let's debug in a different way.
Got a breakpoint.
This should technically work. Oh, wait a second. I think what we're missing is some kind of semicolon or something small like that. Because it's saying undefined, right? I mean, that shouldn't be undefined.
there be a space between function and parentheses?
The first line.
Nah, that's fine. Which one? This one?
Yeah, shouldn't there be a space between the N and the left parentheses?
No.
No, this should be fine.
Should there be another a closing parentheses on the apps.get?
Where's the apps.get?
Like right where the cursor is at, there's only two left parentheses.
Well, so this one's right here, right?
Yeah, it's.
Welcome to the JavaScript world. This will not have a problem in .NET. With that, resolution becomes hard. Okay, so what are we missing here, right? We got this right, which is perfect because it's just an HTML file. We're missing nothing here. We've got the package dependency, which is Express. We're good at. So we've got Express here. We've got this, which is app. Now I've got app.get, and I have this.
Can we do a sanity check and comment out the send file and replace with a console log? Just as a sanity check to make sure
Yeah, we can do that.
that least works.
So anyways,
Is that comma on the top, first line?
huh?
The first line has a comma at the end. Is that? I don't.
Yeah,
It's
that
just a
one's fine.
continuation.
Oh, is that the
This
continuation?
is fine too. That's
He's
just right.
declaring
That's
two
what I'm saying.
variables.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Is static? Is it static?
The rest of static should be fine too. I mean, unless we just remove this and try that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll work.
Okay.
So the reason I do static is to actually make sure that that directory is publicly accessible. You have to tell the server that, hey, it's publicly accessible, right? That's why you do static. So it's kind of interesting that it worked without that. That was a good one. Who said that? Awesome. Do you want a free JetBrains software? I gotta bribe you, man. It's all about good reviews. That's how we survive. You want one?
Sure.
Okay, so send me an email. Well, no, wait. What's your name? Because everyone else is gonna send me an email. So what's your name?
Seth.
Awesome. Okay, any other Seth here? Just create a junk email with Seth, and it's easy. He didn't even tell me the last name, so we're good to go. So anyways, so this was simple, right? I mean, all we did is just served an HTML from JavaScript. We're good to go. So from JavaScript in the server, which is Node. So this is serving an HTML, and that's great. But you notice one thing, that in about 10 lines of code, we've got a server running. I mean, that's impressive, right? And that was the thing about Node. And then they started comparing Node with .NET, which was the worst thing ever. It's like saying, you know, Australia versus India. Well, we can never compete with Australia. You know why? Because we produce one every year. The population of Australia is produced by India every year. But it's like saying, you know, Australia is better or India is better. That's not even a good comparison. Why? Because Node is not actually a framework. Node without the modules is what they compare with .NET as a framework. And that's not a valid comparison. It's apples versus oranges, you know. I mean, it's even worse. But if you start putting all the modules in, that's when you should compare it with .NET. So that's when .NET came with Katana, and actually Katana performs faster than Node. So just to give you an idea, you know, that we're going to compare the frameworks. So that's one thing that's very important too. Let's go back to the slides, because they seem to work better than code. So popularity of mean stack. These were the two main reasons that I got into scalability and performance myself. You know, about 5-6 years ago, I read this and I was like amazed. And that was when I started guaranteeing my clients, like, okay, 200 millisecond on any request ever. This is what I started giving them. And how did I achieve that? Well, I'm not talking about the latency. Remove the latency. I'm talking about a server, nothing more than 200 milliseconds. But these were the two lines that actually made me rethink about everything what I was doing. Google says half a second increase in latency caused traffic to drop by a third. And that could mean 20% of the revenue. That's more than $5 billion a year. Can you imagine? Half a second, that's 500 milliseconds. We don't even think about it. Especially in the enterprise world, like 8 seconds is just normal. You can grab a cup of coffee, you know what I mean? By the time the website pulls up, and the competition's already taken it. So Amazon, extra 1/10 of a second on their response times will cost them 1% in sales. That's a few $1 billion right there. It's just 1/10 of a second extra. Means 100 milliseconds very important. So imagine like how important scalability is, but at the same time, you've got to be able to perform when you're scaling, right? So with the recent projects I've done on 1 billion hits a day on some of my clients, it's very, very crucial to even be available. Forget about scaling at that speed, especially Thanksgiving when you're getting 1 billion hits a day. You know, worked with one of the Fortune 500s last year. It was the first year in 15 years that they never had a glitch. But it was a big success because we took care of it for almost 6 months before that day. We were planning for it, you know. So NoSQL basics. These are the 3 things that actually are like a triangle. You know, the same thing as you go to your boss, hey, cost, quality, time. Boss, you're never going to get all the 3. This is one thing we use as developers, right? Any managers here? Okay, that's good. We can talk freely. So they same thing, consistency, availability, and partition. You can't get all the 3. That's what cap theorem says. And consistency really means atomicity in this case. Because it was just defined a little different. Maybe they wanted cap versus apt, so they just called it consistent. They actually mean atomic. What does that mean? When you make a request, you want that to happen, or you don't want it to be happen, right? I mean, it's like all or none kind of a scenario. Availability, someone makes a request to your server, website, something comes up. You know, we're not like, hey, we're Twitter, and we're maxed out. You know, we're $11 billion company. We're always maxed out. You know, so that availability, Twitter never learns. It's just the way it is. You know, they don't have good developers. They don't have any of us. None of us work for them. That's exactly the reason. Partition tolerance. No set of failures less than the total network failure is allowed to cause the system to respond incorrectly. And by the way, I don't want to rant on Twitter, but you know what they do? They first write in Ruby, which is such a stupid thing to do. Why would you write something on an interpreter that's going to go that many billions? You know, and that's when Ruby 2.0 was like horribly slow. And then they're like, oh, Ruby now fixed itself on 3.0, and they're good, but forget about it. We're Twitter. We're going to move to Scala. Did you know this? This actually did happen because they didn't have smart folks like us working for them. So anyways, so here's what happens in a network scenario. Distributed programming. So let's say you got a name over there, and you change it. You change the name. What's going to happen? You have to replicate that data into another server. Because why do you have multiple servers? The reason you have multiple servers is because you want someone to request something and you want him to be able to get the request back. You just can't have one server, right? There's no more the SQL server of the world that, well, we're going to run on this one box forever, and we're going to be good, you know? So you have replicated servers. Well, now you wrote to one server, but it has to replicate to another server. So what's going to happen is you're going to take that message, send it over to the other server. But the problem occurs in a distributed environment because a lot of things can happen. You may not even have a connection anymore. Something might go wrong. You might not be able to update that thing, right? That part is not guaranteed. Now, even if you update, someone might have made a request to that server before you update it. There's latency, and there's a lot of other things, right? Depends on your traffic. So distributed programming is one of those things that you cannot trust anything. Just like Dallas weather. Whatever you saw last month was distributed programming. Someone talk about God here? That was God's way of telling you what distributed programming is. So anyways, so here's, you guys laugh too, that's awesome, man. I'm feeling good about it now. Anyways, my jokes are doing good. That was it, another one. So you see the update message could have actually not made it. It made it or it didn't make it. But you have to be able to think of both the scenarios whenever you're writing your code. And that's where it gets complicated. Because the whole idea is you're not going to trust anything. You're like a scientist. Scientists are the most skeptic people ever. They create a theory and then they try their best to break it. They make deliberate attempts to fail their own theory. And when they can't fail it anymore, they're like, yeah, this is done. This looks like it's solid. Right? So same thing here. We have to make sure that we try to fail it until it actually works. So, the fallacies of distributed computing. Networks are reliable. It isn't. Latency is 0. A lot of people think like that, but it's actually not. These are important things. There's a good article about this, by the way. Fallacies of distributed computing. It's on Wikipedia. You should always read that article. One article worth reading. After my blog, you know. Bandwidth is infinite. That's what people think. Bandwidth is infinite. That's how YouTube ended loss. Because Google engineers didn't have any idea what's going to cause them. Network is secure. Did you know Google engineers had a hard time scaling thumbnails than the videos? Do you know this? It's actually harder to scale thumbnails. Because the smart guy at Google, you know what he did? he didn't realize that directories have a limit to the number of images you can put in it. So when you have a video which is about a 2-hour movie, it's great to have the video and it's easy to scale it. You can put multiple servers and you can put chunks and all that stuff. But imagine how many thumbnails it has. More than the pictures this guy has ever taken in his entire life or something. And he wanted to put all of them in one directory. He didn't even do it in nested directories or whatever. Seriously, it was a big problem. Yeah, topology doesn't change. We think that. But now you have a topology, let's say 50 servers, some of them can break. Do you know Netflix has a chaos monkey? Have you heard of that? So here's a joke about it. I ended up telling a CIO friend of mine 2 minutes before the board meeting, hey, Netflix has got this chaos monkey. You know what it does? It actually goes and breaks these servers in production to make sure that Netflix is really ready for not breaking in production, right? So he goes inside and goes, they've got this smart monkey. You literally thought it's a real monkey. And he said it to the whole boardroom, So moral of the story, like developers work for people like these. And they become, forget it, I'm not going to tell his name now. Maybe after the talk is over, informal chat, I'll tell you who he was. You probably know him. He's not from Dallas. Dallas has smart people anyways. So people think there's one administrator. The most attacks that happen in our industry, one of the top 10 attacks is because security misconfiguration. The same company doesn't even put the same security software on every new server that goes in. Can you believe this? It's one of the top 10, and that happens because of this. A lot of other people trying to do the same job. Transport cost is 0, which is not, and network is homogeneous. That's actually not true either. So anyways, NoSQL versus relational. If you look at the top left corner, those are the most performing NoSQL databases. Memcached, it's like a key-value pair. Don't get anything more than that. It's just a regular key-value pair. Very good for caching. A little below that, more like key-value, that's like Redis. It's got key-value, but it's got some data structures and all that stuff. But if you look at a depth of functionality, they're pretty limited, right? And that's why they're very good at scale. On the other hand, relational databases, very good at depth and functionality, but can't scale. And that's why there's a big issue, right? So these guys, document databases are here. So the promise is that they have a good amount of depth of functionality, but at the same time they're performant. This is where MongoDB, Cassandra, React, and a lot of good stuff is, right? And then document databases also have other databases, which document databases depends on the key. The key is the main part. And then you have the value databases. Basically, they depend on the value, like Elasticsearch, Solr, Lucene, anything to do with search is mostly a document database, which actually focuses on the value part. So anyways, relational versus NoSQL. They say that you get joins in case of relational, and there are no joins in NoSQL, but you don't really need one. That's kind of interesting. And then scalability-wise, NoSQL are good, so I'm just going to skip that. This is the trend. After some time, you cannot grow your box beyond a certain capability, so you have to actually scale up. So when you're scaling up, the cost goes higher and higher and higher, but there's a physical limit to what you can buy, and then you have to scale out. So scaling out, NoSQL databases are really good, but scaling up, that's where RDBMSs do really well. But that's the problem, because after some time, they just won't scale beyond this port. So RDBMS is not the right solution. They're very hard to shard if you've ever tried that. Then you lose the benefits of a relational model. So the whole reason you had an RDBMS was because of the relational model. And when you try to actually shard it and go to multiple servers, you're losing that benefit. So why even use it in the first place? And then you have to create and maintain schema on every server, so why even use it? Distributed caching for RDBMS, it only speeds up the reads. So the reason I bring this up is because there's no solution like only RDBMS or only NoSQL. You always have to do polyglot programming. It means you'll have to use a combination of these. So when you're trying to use the combination, don't make the RDBMS do what it's not good at, right? NoSQL is schemaless, it's got auto-sharding, distributed query, integrated caching, but it's not good at one thing, which is ACID properties. So what do you do in your application? Anything to do with serious money, put it in your RDBMS. Your shopping cart and all that cool stuff, you know, SSNs and all that good stuff. That 20% data that you really care about goes into your RDBMS. The next 50 to 60% data that you don't really care about much, but you still want it, you know, you can actually keep it in your NoSQL. You can always back it up in your SQL servers if you want to, go for it. But it's good to be over there. And then the rest of the 20%, which is more like searchable data, needs to go in a Lucene or, well, Lucene is a bad idea. I think Elasticsearch or Solr. That's how it scales. You know, and I've done a lot of systems. They work really well with polyglot programming. So NoSQL types. A lot of people think it's NoSQL and then there is SQL. Well, that's not very true. Even in NoSQL, they all do different things. So like GraphDB, you know, Neo4j is specifically meant for graphs. So if Facebook was built on Neo4j, it would have been better than being built on Cassandra. You know, same with full text search. Document store and full text search are two different things. You should not use MongoDB for any searches. It's a bad idea. There's no benefit. It was so hard for them to even include searching, and it came in the 4th version. That tells you how hard it was, because it was not built search first. So ordered key value pair is like a Redis. You know, you cannot use that as a replacement for a document store like Cassandra, because it just doesn't do it, right? And if you really want two real good ones, it's React and Cassandra. If you really want reliable NoSQL databases, these are the only two. And if you want to read about it, there's a blog called apphire.com, aphyr.com. He breaks every single NoSQL in the world. He's not been able to break React that well. So React is really good, you know, and Cassandra, because they're both built on Amazon's Dynamo Paper. That's something close to Google, whatever, Google Bigtable. So AngularJS, everyone loves it. Let's talk about what it is. We're gonna do a demo pretty soon, so if you're just beginning to yawn, you know, hold on. We'll yawn together. How about that? So how many of you have worked on AngularJS? Very good. Let me tell you a trick. When you're speaking, you don't get to drink water. So a lot of times when speakers ask you a question, it's not because they want to really know what you did. Anyways, don't share this, okay? So, but I'm genuinely interested to know how many of you did Angular, by the way. So, you guys didn't understand, that was also a joke. None of this is serious anyway. This whole thing, you find is none of this is serious. You expecting me to say something? Sorry. So here's it's a complete application framework, that's what they call. It's more like a jQuery replacement. You know, like, hey, what's the next cool thing? Let's get you something, you know, so let's just build it. And then we're Google, so we'll make it popular. That's how it became popular. Then it used MVVM, which is the same thing Knockout used. And you realize that Knockout did not get support from Microsoft after some time. So Google had to come up with something, and Google came with something, and they're like, okay, let's make this popular, right? Same thing with Knockout. Do you know the problems with Knockout? Did you use Knockout? Okay, good, you're already smart. Good thing, don't invest time in anything like that. Any other MVVM framework library you guys used? Ember? Yeah, so anyone, what's the difference between Ember and Angular? Other than Angular is 120 kilobytes and Ember is like 500 something kilobytes. That's a big difference, right? Do you guys know that jQuery was the whole thing about, oh, jQuery is awesome, jQuery is awesome. But you know that even until a few years ago, the browser caching limit on a mobile browser was 26 kilobytes. And jQuery was about 40 kilobytes. So imagine people trying to sell a single page framework, which is more than 26 kilobytes. That's the biggest joke of our industry. 99% people believe them that's actually going to work. But you know what's happening? Every time it's coming back on the wire. You're reloading that whole thing. And there were, wait a second. This is not getting recorded. Good. There were frameworks shipped within Visual Studio. All of them were more than 26 kilobytes. They would not work on any of these. Breeze and a lot of these hot towels and all that stuff was stupid crap. Don't get me wrong. You know, it just wasn't the right thing. You were fooling the public. It just couldn't work. So what we used was Now we can record it. So what we used was, our own version of jQuery, which was 7 kilobytes. Because all what we needed was that 7 kilobytes, right? Let me ask you another question. Do you use underscore?
Yeah.
A lot of people use underscore, right? How many of those methods you always use in every single file? Or in every application you don't, right? So why not rip the method that you need? Because at the end of the day, it's JavaScript. It's not DLL code, right? And a lot of these things matter when we're writing an application that actually has to come back in less than 200 milliseconds. It's not easy to give that guarantee, but there's a lot of things that you learn when you're doing this kind of project, right? So anyways, this was a good sale. Everything was great. Angular is still popular. Angular 2.0 is a little breaking, but let's see some demos here. So before we get into Angular, now we can write this code in this place, which is good. So let's go here and say, okay, file. Let's get another directory here. I'm just going to call it JS. And then Angular works with controllers. So it's again an MVC framework with MVVM on your client side. I would call it MV star framework. So you come in here, and then let's just do this another thing, controllers. Got another directory, and then let's just add another JS file. So the way I do it is with the way a lot of people do it. You say client dot, what's the name? Let's just call it Dallas, and then controller dot JS. So you come in here. First of all, we need Angular, so let's just go grab Angular. AngularJS Google CDN link. Let's get it from here. Right here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to put it right here. Did that work? So we have that script, and then we also need to include this particular script that we are adding on our own. So script, can anyone tell me the source of this? It's going to be, I'm in view, so it's going to be this guy, and then JS slash controllers slash client. Oh wow, that's awesome. It's like WebStorm now. So we got these two, and then we're going to go in here. Now, a lot of people have a different file for their module. I'm not going to do that, and I'll tell you the reason why. First, let's go and create the module. App equals to Angular module. Let's just call it meetup app. We're going to keep it simple. We're just going to do everything in one line here. So we got app.controller. And let's just call the controller meetups controller. And then this guy should actually be taking function. It takes something called a scope. Now the scope is what actually makes the two-way binding happen. I'll show you that in a minute. Well, I'm hoping this should work. Let's see. $scope. The message equals to hello. And then if I go back here, I need to tell that you are using Angular. So the best thing about Angular is the directives. Angular doesn't mess with your HTML. So what it does is uses what came in HTML5 as the directives, and it creates its own, right? So why is it not showing up here? Let's try that. By the way, if I have any problems on the lowercasing or uppercasing, this won't work. So please help me there. With this kind of resolution, that's my only excuse. And then on the body, that's where I tell my controller. And I think, what's it called? Meetups controller? What's the message? Let's see if this works. Oh, that didn't work.
I think it was meetup, not meetups controller.
Failed to load resource. Why is that? Is it JS controllers? Oh, we're missing client. Is that what we're missing? Yep. It should be client, right? Where's that guy? So it didn't go to client.
Because it's goes in from the server.
Yep, and you know what, we can fix it in a different way on the server too, and we'll look at that in a second. Let's see if this works. So now we have another problem. That didn't work either. Wait a second. Okay, so here's what you need to do. App.use express.static. Alright, should it work?
Change the reference in your HTML.
Yeah.
So in that case, just straight to control the track.
By the way, Nodemon also takes time sometimes, so I don't know if it actually restarted or not, but that also could be the thing. Now we have two issues. Well, that's fine. This is not that issue, so this is a good issue. But what it's telling me is that it's not able to work with this guy, which is this guy, right? So meetups controller.
Was Nodemon watching the HTML file as well as the index.js?
It shouldn't, because it's the client, right?
Right.
So that's meetup app. This is what I have over here. HTML ng app, ng controller, so meetups controller. Let's try this. Because that means even Angular is not working. Yep. So why is that? Because this is irrespective of anything. That means Angular is not working right now.
You get to push to the scoop in dependencies after right down where your cursor is. Just close like empty, right?
What's empty?
Yes,
By the way, I don't have another tool to give you.
You have to include the dependencies of that app, so you have to.
Oh yeah, that's it. Where do you work? That's it. That's it. That's awesome. Where do you work, by the way? Your boss is here? We're gonna chat after this? We should. So that's right. So that's exactly what it was. It was actually dependencies, which I don't really need to put in. Now, keep in mind that you will get into issues with this code. So I'm not writing the best code here, right? Let me tell you one thing that you're gonna get into a big issue with is this. If you actually don't do this, comma, whatever my other dependency is, I can add a lot of dependencies, right? Basically, this guy, which is that function, is nothing but my controller method, and this should be the last thing in the queue. Why? Because if you have a minifier, what the minifier does is it removes $scope and calls it n or x or whatever because it's trying to make it small. So when that happens, this guy would not actually understand it, and it's gonna break. So if you don't actually put the dependencies, this code is gonna break. So just to give an idea that there are better ways of doing this code, we're trying to do it so that we can get there faster. So were we able to see the message? No. Oh, because I removed the message. But what's the problem with this kind of code? Yeah, it's a global scope problem. And why is that a problem? It's a good one. Do you know the problem with this code? So app is a very generic name, right? Anyone can come and overwrite app in a minute. So you know the problem with JavaScript, this is what it is. Think about this. You've got, okay, here's a question. Var x equals to 0, right? And x equals to 0. They're both in global scope. What's the difference? This is trying to prove yourself. The question is open to you too, by the way.
If it was within its own function closure and you weren't using strict, var x equals 0 would be local to that scope, whereas the second line on line 8 would be an accident local.
And that's fine. I'm actually purposely putting this on global scope. So this one exists, because at one point in time I have to comment the other one. But all I'm saying is, what's the difference between var x equals to 0 and x equals to 0? It's one of my interview questions, and you should use it. Because when you're hiring a JavaScript guy, I'm expecting him to know this is a big difference. What's the difference?
It adds it on the context.
Huh?
It adds it. The one without the bar adds it as a property of the object or context, global context. So
Yeah, I mean, it still will be. Both of them are global. They will be, because if I'm putting them in the global context, they still will be, right? They both behave the same, but there's one major difference. So anyways, I'll give you the answer. If you buy me free dinner. So the answer is this, that you cannot actually delete this guy. You cannot do delete x now. This just won't work. And that's a problem. And that's a lot of these things that Angular team doesn't look at. I mean, there's a lot of JavaScript code out there. You know that IE 10 was 3 times faster than Chrome on good JavaScript code. And this is not me saying it, it's Douglas Crockford, the father of JavaScript, who made that statement. But the reason Chrome appeared to be faster then was because most of the code out there is actually bad JavaScript code. And Chrome only optimizes bad JavaScript code, right? So that's a big statement. So this guy you cannot delete. So if you are in global scope, you're better off doing this than that. But again, that's in itself a problem. You don't want to do that, right? What's the problem here? Well, now there's an ad that your company gets, and someone comes and says, okay, app equals to, hello, your whole Angular is broken in a second because it's in the global scope. And it might be in a totally different file that you've never seen. Does that make sense? So how do you counter this? So in order to counter this, the only good way to do it, or the way I know to do it, is you take a function and you make the function call itself. And you can't have a function call itself if you actually don't have these brackets. You have to have those. And you put all this stuff right here. So just to make sure that it actually works, let's go back. Message. By the way, how much time I have? So it did work, right? But what's the benefit? The benefit is that now, where are we? Right here. Anyone comes and writes anything, it doesn't matter because it's not affecting that thing. You created a scope and you made the function call itself, right? That's the beauty about JavaScript. It's amazing. Like, you can have a function call itself. JavaScript lets you do a lot of things that you cannot actually do on your own. Like, you can get wild with it. So here's another question. This thing is great, but now I really want. Let's just say I've got another function. By the way, these are some of my interview questions, so don't make it public, right? Just friendly, right? Friendly. All right, so you right here. Now, I don't want count to be exposed outside this function, right? I want to use y and z outside the function. How do I do that?
That's your job.
Huh?
Pass it as an object.
Process.
Pass it.
Pass it as an object. Very good. How do you do that? There's a theoretical term for it. You're good. You're pretty close.
Oh,
Object literal, right?
yes.
So what you could do is this. Like y is y. I mean, you can give it different names too. I don't care, but I mean, you should actually give it different names. But now, no one can steal your other guy, which is this guy. No one can steal your count. Now see, the thing is, a lot of these things is because a lot of people who go from JavaScript and stay in JavaScript would not notice these things. But it's very important because me coming from a C# background, I want to make sure that my code is robust. So I have to make sure that, okay, that's a private field. Put it this way, this guy is a private field, and these are public fields because I'm exposing them. And that's very important because I don't want someone to go modify my account, right? And now the problem with this code is only this guy. We have one guy that could actually be, misused. So that's where you take this guy and wrap around this guy. So you can't misuse that guy either, right? Does that make sense? Because right now the only single point of failure here is that thing, and it's a big failure. So that's what you have to eliminate, and if you need to eliminate that, then you would just do that.
You might have meant to return z instead of x.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Well, x is defined as the function.
Oh yeah. So that's just a typo, but no tool for that. Sorry. We're friends. You get my business card. How about that? So, okay. So we don't really do much Angular, but let's try some. So we come in here and we go. Let's see. Let's just do something better. We can do better than this. We'll go and do a to-do app or something. So if I come back here, I'm right here, and I'm just going to create a JSON object. Let's just call it JSON. Out of respect for the guy who created it. Name your variables, make them happy, because this is not production level code. So what do you want to do? An array. Name Dallas. And what's your age? Does anyone know Dallas' age? I'm still young, 20.
104 years.
Oh really? Is that real?
Something
It's
like
about
that.
150.
Wow. By the way, I hope you don't get scared by a lot of semicolons, because JavaScript guys don't like semicolons. That's what I've heard. Speaking of semicolon, there's another question I'm going to ask later, but I'm going to hold off. So we take this JSON object or whatever, and you know what? We could actually call it something else. Let's just do a $scope just JSON. So I have this object. Let's just make a few more. And then it gets challenging to do copy paste. I'm sure I'll do something wrong.
Yeah.
So help me there. Houston compared to Dallas is a kid. So Austin will keep it fair. Don't worry about it. Because I live there. So I have an apartment here too, by the way. So we got this JSON scope or whatever. We got this. We can come back here and say UL li and what was it, the thing? What was the object called? JSON? Okay, so data JSON. I'll see if it works. Then we'll get a little bit creative. Ooh, scope is not defined. How can that be? Oh, yeah. Go back. So we, by mistake, got it out of the controller. And that's where it was not defined. Oops. So see, by the way, I don't have to compile my code here because all of this is on client side. So you see what happened? I just got a list created, but imagine what you have to do in JavaScript or jQuery and all that stuff. So the templating part is very easy with this thing because it's pretty slick. So now I've got this list, but I would rather want this list coming back from my server or something, and I could manipulate it and all that stuff. But for now, let's work on memory, and when we do Mongo, we're going to bring it back from the database, right? How about that? Call it a deal? Keeping quiet is happy as? Such a good audience, man. Like, I'd rather come in and just talk as much as, like, it's hard to find good listeners. There are job, openings are like, we want a good listener. We want a guy with good communication, and because we want to talk a lot, we want someone to listen to us. I would surely recommend you guys there. So what are we doing next? We're just gonna try to add something, right? So let's go back here on the client side and say input type equals to text. Let's see, placeholder equals to submit, and just call it add. Where's the typo?
On input type.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh,
Thank you. You get a business card too, by the way. So we've got this. Let's see what it became. So we have something like, okay, add a member. And let's try to add a member. So we've got this, but what am I missing? There's one thing I'm missing here. Yeah, I'm missing an ng thing. What's the other one?
And you submit.
Exactly, I'm missing the ng submit. Good point. Thanks. So form. Who said that, by the way? This is your boss here? Oh, it's the same guy. Sorry, man. Good one. So what we're gonna do is actually submit it. When we submit this form, we're gonna have a method that's gonna actually do something, right? So we come in here, we go ng submit, and we're just gonna call it create. Well, what is it? Create a member or something? Add member. So I have to go back into my controller and write that method. Did I remember? So right here, all I have to do is add that method, right? Which actually adds that thing, but right now we're going to do all that in memory. So we come in here on function, $scope. Can anyone tell me what it is? What's the name of the model? Yep. So this is what I already have here just because I put it in my model. So all I have to do is push it in this guy. So I can go in this and just say push. Now I gotta put it in a different way. So the member was the name, that's it. We're not taking the age here, right? So then I have to make it JSON. Simple. And that's it. There's a little bug in it, but we'll fix it in a second if this works. Oh, undefined is not a function. What went wrong?
You want to set add member equal to the function rather than passing the function to the add member. On line 10.
Where's that?
Scope.add member equals function.
Oh, yeah, good one. Cool. So let's see. We're gonna add. That worked. So see what we did? What's the magic here? What's the magic?
Two-way data binding?
Yeah. You see, because all I did is I actually didn't do much. I only pushed it right here, right? But what it did, it went back and changed the DOM for me. That's the part that gets exciting. And that's the part that actually gets you in trouble too when you're doing multiple page, single page apps. So when you get to, like, let's say you've got a single page app with 200 pages, you're gonna run into a lot of issues if you don't write it the right way. Or, you know, that's debatable. Maybe you can get into issues even if you write it the right way. So now, the next thing I could do is, you know, just go and remove that thing that's showing up, right? We want to remove that message, and what was that? What was the placeholder name? Do you remember? Where's the placeholder guy? Oh, member. Do you understand why I did this? Because this guy still shows up, right? We don't want that. We want it to go away. So by the way, you won't see Seattle being persistent because it was just in memory, right? So let's just come and say whatever, add it, now the member goes away. So we just removed that, right? So this is all client side, nothing is getting persisted. So if I run this back again, it's not gonna do anything, right? But we can go into Mongo and then we can add some details there. Back to the PowerPoint. Who wants a bio break? It's a good way to sneak out of a talk too, by the way. I mean, go for the buy break and the guy never returns. You know, file a report. The guy's missing. So, is everyone clear with everything till now? So by now you are experts on NoSQL basics, Node.js, Express, and AngularJS. Congratulations. Now we're gonna move to the next thing, MongoDB. What a name!
I have something really basic here. So
Yeah.
for the AngularJS,
How in the world do you think that I know something basic? You trust me way too much.
I know
You're a
nothing,
good
so
person.
everything's gonna be better, right? So for the AngularJS, when I looked at the script, basically you're pointing to a script somewhere in the Google database or something like that. So that's getting downloaded to the client.
Yeah, so basically it's CDN, and that's a good point. Let me just see if I can show you this. You see that guy right here? It actually says 304. 304 HTTP code means that it's not modified. Basically, it's cached. So that guy right here is coming from Google APIs.com, the same thing.
So
I
it just
did.
basically gets downloaded onto the client
Right.
machine, right?
And so the best part, referencing it to a Google TDN, is that you don't have to cache it over and over again. So if someone has another app which has the same thing, it's already downloaded and it's on his machine, and so that's the reason you want to do it with a Google TDN. The other thing is they probably have more servers than we do, so it's closer to them. So you're better off doing this. Now, if you are on a plane, obviously, and you don't have internet connection, don't try that. But if you are already in production, then I hope you have internet connection.
So these key value pairs that you're doing, the key value pairs you're doing, the Dallas, Houston, whatever the ages are, those are actually just being stored in RAM on the client side, right? Basically.
Yeah, right now this is just a joke. This has no real significance.
No, I understand, but
It's
I'm
a
trying to
total joke,
understand.
and you don't even know you're part of the joke right now.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question.
Yes.
Can you use Angular with the jQuery?
Yeah, but you don't want to do that. Because Angular actually has partial jQuery part of Angular. So that's a good question. Let me show you why you don't want to do that. Okay. Actually, I haven't shown you HTTP services because you're now going to use jQuery after that. Let's just do it. Let's go to GitHub. By the way, a lot of people nowadays, when recruiters come and ask you, hey, where's your GitHub? That's a bad thing because I use Bitbucket. And my GitHub is really trash. I mean, so you should never judge me by my GitHub, Just to show you my Bitbucket and that I actually do a lot of code. Look at that. I mean, look at the amount of projects I've got going on here. But these are, look at that. I mean, there's like different amount of pages. It's a lot of stuff, right? But GitHub is all kind of free and it's like a different model. Now you get charged by the repos, and here it's by the users. So if you have less than 10 users, you can have unlimited repos on Bitbucket, right? It's great. So if a recruiter asks you for, whatever, just ignore him. So let's see. Wow, I can't believe that's even Google searchable. Okay, so we got this. Oh, what's the GitHub API look like? API.github.com. Anyone knows of any API? User repos, maybe? Okay, that's good enough. We will get something back. It's a very good question, by the way. So what I can do is I can go ahead and add an HTTP service, and I can actually come in here and say, I'm going to code it in a really bad way because I'm trying to explain what I'm doing here. So this is really nothing but a promise. Promise means it has an executor. It's async, so it's going to come back to you. So you come in here and say, well, let's just do it a better way. HTTP of get. I got that. I got my function. Here, function. I think the first method is error. I think the first parameter is error, and then the second thing is probably your result. Let's see if this works. So, wait. I don't want to do that. I was actually going to break it into two methods to explain what's going on. So right here, whatever. Is X being used somewhere else? No. Promise the now then result. Let's see. say that?
You need to have a session.
Oh, requires authentication. Well, that's what it's giving me back anyways. Does anyone know any regular API? Just give me a link. Just want to demonstrate one. Huh?
Open weather API.
Open weather API. I'm sure you used it quite a bit last month, looks like. So, do you see any link here? Oh man, it has an API key.
You might be able to scrape a session token from the GitHub.
Use the first one.
Where's that one? This one?
No.
Call for one location? That guy?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Let's try this. So, see, that's another reason I don't use GitHub. That was a joke, because their API has authentication. I'm kidding, man. A lot of people laugh at my jokes the next day because they're like, "Oh, that's what that guy meant." That was so silly. You know, they're all silly jokes. So we've got this. Let's try this. That'll work, right? Something happened. So we got this guy back. Does that make sense what I did here? $.ajax. I made a get call. I could have done a post call. You know, so, and that tells you that, you know, I didn't prepare my demos because you asked me something outside the demo and I answer, right? That deserves a clap. How about that? But the point is, whatever you're going to try to do in your $.ajax is something that actually works with this get, right? And you can do a $.post. So anything that jQuery does, they already do it, and they also use partial jQuery, so you don't want to use it, right? Because you already have this going. Now we can get this back from Mongo too. We can look at that. Let's go back. Does anyone want a bio break? You guys are really enjoying the session. That gets me scared a little bit. So all day of work, and it's like 8:19 right now. And you guys look smiling, you know, glowing. It's pretty amazing.
We can use Angular with the jQuery mobile, no?
Yeah, you can.
So how we can?
I mean, I don't know why you want to use jQuery mobile. It's so bulky. You know what I mean? Are you trying to test that I can make that work or not? It's a good one, by the way. But I'm not going to fall into that trap. Okay. So, documents. This is what Mongo is. You got like a document. They really don't have a concept of anything but more like documents. Like, this is how it's going to go into your database as a JSON. So it goes, it's basically BSON or binary SON, whatever that stands for. Binary what object notation? What is JSON?
JavaScript object notation.
So what is BSON? I think it's still binary object notation. Why do they call it BSON? Good point. Anyways, so basically all you have is this one command. It says db.post.save, and that's gonna save it into your post collection. That's all it is, right? So you're saving P is the object, and you can save it as it is. And next time if you want to save post, you can actually go and change this and add another, let's say H here, or something else. You can add few more fields. You can remove certain fields. It doesn't care, because it's actually the object that's going in, right? So that's the benefit. Now, how much time do you spend changing your schema? And when you change your schema, you know, all your developers are broken and all that stuff on a database, right? You don't have to worry about that here. Yep.
What are you defining to be your key, or how do you specify?
So if you don't specify your key, MongoDB creates a key for you. But if you do specify your key, then it lets you take the key. Now the key could be a string, it could be an integer, it could be a GUID or whatever. It's totally up to you how you're going to specify that key. There are certain downsides to it. I'll show you that. Let's just show you Mongo for a second.
So if you were to call that again, save immediately after, would it insert a duplicate value in the database?
Yeah, very good. That's exactly what I was going to show you right now. So right here. So in order to run Mongo, you run MongoD. MongoD is going to start running Mongo. So now Mongo is running on my machine. Great. Mongo by default requires a data directory, and when it installs it, it's so dumb that it actually doesn't install it. So it wants you to install it. Otherwise, if you don't go and put data and then DB here, MongoDB won't work. It's kind of funny. And it's hard coded to see data unless you change it yourself. But anyways, so we come in here and we go Mongo right here. So Mongo is working right now. So I'm connected to test database, I can go and say, what's your name?
Alex.
Alex. Now I switch to DB Alex. So now we're on DB Alex, right? So now you can add something, but let's just say, what are we gonna do here? Let's just take this example. To make it simple, DB. So control collections got nothing going on, right? DB.post dot wait a second, what was that? Add, save, save. Let's just see. I hope that works. Inserted one, right? So if you want to see this, db.post.find, and you see that guy back, right? If you go back and do this, inserted one. So now you go and find you got two keys, so you got to be very careful what you're inserting because it thinks of this as two different documents, right? And by the way, so here's what you got to do. Wait a second, how did that work? They probably changed something recently in this version because it has 3. Well, hang on with me, we'll fix it. It gets really hard. So now I've got my ID here. Inserted 0. Now you got the right error. So you're always better off getting your own ID. But again, it should not be like a number or whatever. You know, look at it in a bigger way and think about it because, again, if you're going to go the integer route, then you're not going to be able to scale that well. So that's another thing you have to keep in mind. But by the way, there's something wrong here because insert should have given an error. This is the same exact document because insert and save have that difference. I'm not sure why it didn't work. See, because it keeps inserting no matter what I do.
What constitutes a valid key?
You see that? You saw the difference? So this guy upserted 0, modified 0, but the other one was error. So there's a little bit of difference here. That guy, I mean, you see this one, db.post.insert, and then there's the same one with db.post.save. So there's a difference. The other one gives you an error, and it really says inserted nothing, but again, whatever. Duplicate key error index over there, right?
What would happen if you tried to do a save with an ID of 2? Would it actually save it, or would it?
Oh, ID 2? Yeah, it'll save it.
Okay.
So let's see this. Let's just do this. So you saw that? Save did not execute. On my name, it didn't because it gave me an error right there. Well, save doesn't give me an error, but it did not execute. So I'm still having, with my name, it's only one record, right? So I'm going to do the same thing with insert. And we'll just call it something else. So in this case, an error. So that's the only difference. But I mean, it's pretty intuitive, right? I mean, how is it intuitive in Mongo as a joke? Because like insert or save, you really can't tell much. So it's pretty interesting, like how they even come up with these kind of names. Should do a little bit more work. I bet there's a lot of people over there with my kind of English. So, anyways, good. We're gonna move forward. Okay. So db.post.find. This is what it does. We already did this, so we're through this. You can create indexes on any field like that. You can shorting index over there, and you can even go and so keep in mind the speaker is one, and then it has a name. You can actually do whatever you want to do because it doesn't really care. You know, so the data is in your hands. Basically, you can manipulate it and you can use it and you can misuse it, but basically it's in your hands. There's no real enforcement into a data type. It doesn't have to be an int, big int, or whatever. You could change it every single time you want to. So it's kind of interesting, but you have to do a lot of work in your app to make sure that this is working right. A lot of people come and say, hey, in case of database, I get a transaction. I ask them only one question. Do you not have a unit of work pattern in your code? If you don't have a unit of work pattern in your code, you're already doing something wrong. In this case, all you're doing is doing the same exact thing. So a lot of the reservations going from SQL to NoSQL don't actually stand because you're already doing that, right? Is everyone with me on the unit of work thing? So let me ask you a question on unit of work. So I sign up on a website, and the email service could be down, right? So when I sign up, my unit of work, what should it include? Just signing up my login, or also that it sent the email out to me? What about others? You don't disagree with him?
And the whole thing, you shouldn't actually finish it until you can do both parts.
Okay, so they're both debating now. That's awesome. I like that. They're gonna fight after the meetup is over. So, who's gonna support him and who's gonna support him? Let's just divide the meetup. Polarize the meetup in a second, right? That's what it is about. Polarization gets everyone excited on Twitter. That's how Twitter makes 11 billion and Facebook makes another 100 or whatever. Anyways. So they're both right. See, keeping quiet is half yes, but now it's kind of hard for me to tell which one is right because they're both.
We're going to have to defend why we think it's one way or the other.
Yes, let's go. Why don't you do that?
I believe that with the email having to go at the same time you insert the record into the database is because it's a transaction. And as such, the person is not actually a member of anything until they've completed the entire
So imagine like your email service is down for 1 hour. I go and create the same username like 100 times because your email service is down. If I were to go and put the unit of work in that direction.
So it's a transaction. You can't complete. You can't do both. You have to finish both before you do it.
But that's exactly the problem because think of me as a user, right?
Right.
I mean, I can understand your point. It's a valid point, right? I mean, you both have valid points, but there's a big problem here. I am gonna go and get my username, ABC, and since the email didn't go out, right? It's gonna throw me back. Now I have to go create the same username again, and again, and again, for the whole hour until your email service is up. So if I implement the unit of work like that, then I'm in trouble because the unit of work says that you have to have both. Whereas I'm better off having only the first one as a different unit of work and the second one as a different unit of work. Right? So you see, you can take computer science and manipulate it to, not really manipulate it, use it in the right way. And it actually might be a computer science way of saying, yeah, this is the right way, but when it comes to your user, you have to really think of him first, right? What's actually happening at his end? Because I think both of them have a valid point, but at the same time, I won't go back to the website over and over again. I'm okay with you sending an email 10 minutes later or an hour later, even if your email service is down, but I just want to fill it up one time, otherwise you're going to lose me as a user, right? So I think that part is important. So conditional operators, there's a lot of these. The same way you can do, by the way, a lot of these have costs too. So if you go and just find some of these and say, okay, well, this is easy, well, it depends what you want to do. Because every operation is going to have a different kind of cost, especially when you're getting it out of a distributed system. The way you make the query makes a lot of difference the same way as it does in your regular database. And yeah, so you see that expression, the regular expression that you have over there, that's their way of providing search. This is never going to be as efficient as Elasticsearch or Solo or any other thing out there. So if you really have a website which is actually, search related, I can show you one. then you're better off using Elasticsearch. So for example, this is a project I did, brought in Elasticsearch to Fandango. And if you used their search 2 years ago, it was not very good. It was less than 2% people using the search. Wow.
It's not a DNS step. It's not doing response time.
Wow. See, I was talking about Chrome. I just proved it. How about that? Oh no, that's amazing. This is not what I did, guys. what happened? I don't know why like demos always fail. And even worse, MSN comes up really well. Let's see. So, I was talking about Chrome, and I proved it again. So here's the search piece, right? So if you look at this guy, what it's now doing is, the moment you go and search you see the speed, it's pretty quick. At the same time, you get 4 different kinds of searches. You're doing 4 categories, right? So it's kind of nice because as a user, now you are motivated to use search, whereas less than 2% users use search 2 years ago. And it's important because your user really wants the search button because they're getting used to it all the time. Now here's another example. If you want to stay healthy, don't visit this website. There's not much here, but it's one of my pet projects. I keep adding stuff here. So when I have to do a demo, I make the thing work over here. This is where he was. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty awesome because now you can search different kind of yoga because I teach yoga, right? And then you can go and click one of those or whatever. There's a bug here? No. It's still taking time to do it. Whatever. I mean, trust me, this works. Yes, there's some of this kind of stuff here. This. I don't do it for money, so this is not a shameless marketing plug. But this is cool, right? That particular posture. I'm talking about that. I'm actually talking about the search. So let's just do some real stuff. How much time you guys want to talk all night? I woke up at you saw my message on Meetup was 1:30, and then I woke up at 3:30 and I got here at 7:30 for my first meeting, but I had 2 cups of coffee, so I can go on for another 4 hours. What about you guys? You guys okay? And I can't believe you guys have nothing good going on in your lives. I thought I'm the only one. Seriously. Next time I'm gonna start charging. How about that? So why don't we do? It's the same thing. We're gonna get the same app running from Mongo, right? So in order to make that work, I can do the same demo faster by copying, pasting things. If you guys want to go soon.
I have a quick question versus, you explained the difference between a MongoDB versus like an Elasticsearch, right? I mean, is MongoDB kind of, it's an atomic, you want to do certain search on that object, right? The
right.
key value pair. So I see like MongoDB more closer to like SQL or something like that, where you know what you're looking for before, right?
Right.
So is that so MongoDB and SQL, they're kind of,
yeah, they're pretty close.
Pretty close.
Except Mongo is less reliable.
Okay.
I would not use Mongo on production. It's like like Twitter is a bug in production. Same way Mongo is one. I mean, I'll be careful with it. There are certain cases I'll use it for. I would not use it for a lot of other things.
Okay.
But that's just my personal opinion in order to avoid a lawsuit. Because the talk's being recorded. And if there's a lawsuit, I'm talking on behalf of my company, Chander Dhall, just because the talk's being recorded. So I'm actually protected right now. You had a question?
You use those together?
Yeah.
Okay.
So actually, that's so awesome that you asked that question. What's your name again?
Kendall. Does it make it slow?
You get a business card too, by the way. Let's see. So SQL Server driver for Node.js, right? So I wrote this blog on June 18th, 2012, and it still comes up in the first page of Google. That tells you how active the community is on SQL Server, Node.js. So anyways, but still, it's not bad. You can use it. It works. It works okay. When I wrote it, it was on the second page or whatever. It was like first or second. It was really good. But it still works. I checked it, and wow, a lot of people are probably complaining, but I didn't even look at it. I don't actually use this blog anymore. I've moved to my better blog now. I wrote it out myself. when you have a lot of comments, you just want to go to a better blog, right? And that's it's more professional. That's it. And then you go in here, and then where's the blog? Right. So you can read our blog post, and here are 10 reasons why your executives fail. You should have them read this blog. They'll trust you more. They will start believing in developers after this blog, right? And it's important because actually 1% or less of the executives are successful over and over again in their careers, and we keep thinking that, oh, these are great guys that we have to please. But you know, you can help them be successful. So definitely go on that blog. This is actually me. This is Bulgaria. So, all right. So, was that question, by the way? Did I answer your question?
It was Node, and you're using.
You could use Node and SQL Server.
But isn't it slow down? I'm sorry. I thought I read somewhere that if you use Node with SQL, then it kind of lowers its ability to be fast.
No. So the thing is, the way Node works is that anytime there's a slow call, it doesn't even care. It won't wait. It will wait until it comes back, right? So the call happens, and it keeps doing its own work. And when the callback comes, then it sends it back. So it'll never slow down Node. It's the same exact thing. So that's the best part with Node is, if you want to use slow services, Node is the best thing to do it because you're not consuming resources of the server. So you're better off going Node in that situation than any other. Unless you have some computation intensive work that you have to use a CPU and multiple threads and a lot of that stuff. For example, WPF, you want to do a lot of that kind of stuff, right? Where you have client-side renderings and all that stuff, you know, then you don't want to use Node. You want to render your video behind the scene, you don't want to use Node. That's when you can use F# preferably, or you could use C#, you know, or Java or whatever. Question?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. Did you say that when you make the call to SQL Server, you don't have to worry about it? That Node's gonna, is that the same thing for all?
For everything.
All databases?
Any service. Anything you call. Any service.
So
anything that's going to take time. Anything that's not instant, Node just won't wait for it.
So can you service other requests from clients concurrently?
Yeah, that's the best part about it. See, that's the genius behind Node. It was like this concept. And that's its strength and its weakness at the same time. Right? Well, because everything is still done by that one thread at the end of the day.
So what if the one thread is locked in a call off to some
And what if that one thread is dead? You're dead. Right? So that's where you use a load balancer. Because you're running the same thing over and over.
So you're saying that you can only, that one thread would be blocked, you just have to solve the problem differently by having more node instances.
Oh yeah, for sure. Okay. Good question, by the way. I can't believe like 8:39 at night you guys are so active. So Mongoose. Mongoose is written by a friend of mine, Aaron Heckman, very good guy, very smart guy. And he wrote Mongoose in like his hobby project, and we were talking about it at JS Saturday, and he was like, hey, man, I just wrote it. And it's actually still better than what MongoDB came with, and they now promote this guy's tool. So Mongoose creates a schema for your node. So it's like a driver between Node and Mongo. So when you use Mongo, there's a Mongode, M-O-G-O-N-G-O-D, and there's Mongoose. I prefer Mongoose. And it's more popular too. So if I'm going to install Mongoose, I get this right here. When it comes, did it work? Looks like it did. Okay, good. So we come in here, go back to your server.js. So we come in here, we go Mongoose equals to require Mongoose. Let's see what can we do next. Our schema equals to schema var member. What are you going to call this thing? Meetup, whatever. You know what? Let's just steal it. It's going to be easier. It's actually very simple. Where's that guy? So this way you can see more options. I was only want to give you one option. So what you do is you create your own schema. All you do is get reference to this guy and say, okay, mongoose.schema. So once you have the schema, you can come and decide what do you want to put. In our case, we're just going to go back and say, okay, well, member, and that's a string. that's it. That's our schema. We're not doing anything fancy, but you can do whatever you want to do, right? And you can change the schema, by the way. So if you wanted to add something, you can go blog schema dot something, and you can change that schema too. So that's not a problem. We come in here, we call it blog schema. Let's just call it member schema to keep it consistent with what we're doing. Then we have this guy, and what happened here? Member. And this guy's going to be member. We got this guy. Whoa. And then we don't really need this for now because we want to save this using our HTTP service. So in order to save something, we're going to come and create a post URL here. What we're creating on this side is the URLs, right? So we have API slash, what is it? Let's just call it create, or what are we doing? Members? Members.
You need to define API.
No, this is just a string.
Where is API coming from?
We're just defining it right here. It will come from the client. But for now, we're just on the server, and we're just creating a route. We're creating a route that we can handle on the server. Same way as we did a get here. You remember when we had a get? Anytime you go to localhost 3000 / nothing, you will send a file back.
Yeah, but you defined app, right?
Yeah. Oh, I'm talking about this.
Yeah.
This is the type. Thanks, guys. So you go in here. What are we supposed to do?
Shading.
Is this one of those moments you have that brain F, A, nothing else? So we're gonna go here and
search Mongoose.
we're gonna send a JSON back, right? For now, we're just gonna fake it. Let's just fake it to be something like what we had on the API. It's right here. Oh, sorry, this is the post, so we don't even need to do this. Sorry. So for the post, we can go back and get that thing back. We've got member schema. We've got the new schema. We're missing something, right? I will just keep it hello. So there's one problem with this code. So let me explain you what we did in code. First, we got the schema object. Once we have the schema object, we define the schema, which is nothing but there's a member, which is string, right? So we have member here. So we really need member here. Well, we should just make a name to keep it consistent with what we had on the UI. Oops. And then we got member here. Keep in mind, I got the same name here, just to make sure that I remember what I named it, right? That's why I call this guy member. Because actually the name of the model is member. Now I create a new instance of that member, give it a value, name hello. And I want to save that record into my MongoDB database. But I haven't told it where to save it. Mongoose is not even connected. So in order to connect Mongoose, I gotta go get this thing. By the way, this is something you can create on your own. Let's just do it. If you go back and look at a MongoDB server, we're not even running it. Let's just go set it, run it. Oh, something went wrong. Oh, it's already running. So is that the guy? This is the guy. Do you see a port here? By any chance? Where do you see it?
Port 27.17.
Yeah, that's very good. Where is that?
From the bottom on the left.
Third line? Oh, right. Yep, that's the one. 27017, right? This is where it's running, basically. So what you can do is, you can come on the top here, and once you have access to Mongoose, you go mongoose.connect, and then you can come in here and say, MongoDB, try to become like the HTTP word. So it's like HTTP, right? That's what it looks like. Didn't do a good job, didn't become popular. So by the way, the joke about HTTP, oh man, this is awesome, I'll tell you in a second. A lot of you guys are probably staying back for the jokes. Kidding. So where is it? 27017, right?
Yeah.
Where am I? Where did I go?
Line number 5.
Line number 5? Yeah. 27017. I think that's how you create it. But what we're missing right now is the database. And we can just go and create a database of our own. But what was the last one we used? Alex. You're a popular man. So this should work. Let's just see if this was exactly what we had here.
How do you return a 201 status code?
Oh, that's just part of Node.js. That has nothing to do with
I mean, like how would you do it in here on the post?
Rest.send.
when you're doing a res.send, that's where you're going to put the HTTP code as it is.
Okay.
Comma, rest of the result. That's it. So right here we're connected. We're hoping that we're connected. We come and save here, and wait a minute. This thing will run, but this is a hack. You know why it's a hack? Because I already gave this guy the value it should be putting. Actually, it should be coming from the UI, but we'll work that out too. Let's go back to the UI. So on the UI, what we need to do is submit it, right? When we're submitting it, we have add member. When we go to add member, this guy was actually writing it to memory. We're going to change that to write it to something else. So let's just grab the code. We're going to try to finish it in 12 minutes. Let's see if we get there. Cool. So we're going to change this. And it's the same as this guy, so it's nothing different, right? Look at this, http.get, right? What it's doing is same thing, http.post. The only difference that it has is the data object right here. That's it. So in our case, the data object is this, which we were already putting it in, right? So I'm going to go and replace that right here. And if this, now this is not response. I should call it promise. Now, you don't want to call it promise in your code, but I just want to make sure that this is clear. This really doesn't do anything, but the moment you run success, that's when you're going to get this. So we're done with this guy. We don't need this anymore. That was in memory. We got to change this to API slash, what was it? Members?
Members.
Was members? It's a post, it's API.members, and now you got scope.member. We should be good here. And if there is a success, we're going to say scope.message equals to data. We shouldn't do that. Wait a second. We should go back and use this. Okay. This may not work because we don't know what data is returning, right? And we'll look into and inspect that element to find out what's actually happening. Now I'm assuming Nodemon restarted. Come in here. Let's add something that we didn't add earlier. KKK. Add. So now I found. Oh, save company. It's still going save company? Oh yeah. I thought we changed it. Cool. Go back. And it did something, right? Oh, something came back too. Did that come back? No, this is something older, right? Okay, let's just see what happened in our database. Is that Mongo? That's not Mongo. That is Mongo. Are we now? So let's see. Fine. Did that come in here? No. So it broke somewhere. We don't know where. Don't worry, this is gonna work. So you've got this here. Oh yeah. Hello should have made it. Because we sent it, but we never used it. So what we need to do is use a body parser. Because that thing is coming as a post body. So what I need to do is go and use a body parser. By the way, there's a bug in Node, the new one. It's not really a bug, but they changed the way it works. So if you're using the previous one, you're going to see a little bit of difference here. So what you have to do now is, previously what you had to do was app.use body parser open close function, you're done. But now you have to explicitly define .json, and then you have to define URL encoded, and extended has to be true. This, you have to do it to make it work. Trust me on that. And then let's go back and actually give it that particular. This is another middleware. All it does is parses your body. So if you have a request coming in, it parses your body. Post request, body, whatever. So let's go and put this. So let's assume that this works. So if we have this working, then what we need to do is come in here, change this to rec.body. Was that name or member? It was name, right? Did I make it? How's that even true? Oh, we were in a wrong collection all this while. Thank you guys. So actually, hello made it too last time. That's a big applause. You should applaud on this one. You know, like, it makes you feel good too. Anyway, so it made to the database. That's very good. So what we need to do now is bring this back to the UI, because rather than getting what we're getting from our, you know, where's that guy? Let's fix that. So on the get, we're gonna create another API right here. App.get. Let's see. Now you can use the same exact thing because I'm changing the verb. By the way, I mean it's a lot of fun to code on this kind of platform. It feels so good. You feel good? Like you feel good watching? I don't know, man. I like coding on this one. So API members. Here's where we're gonna do the get. So it should be as simple as just going and doing a find. And the way you do a find is you use member, that object, and then just do a find. We're just gonna steal it right here. Let's see, where's the find? Oh man, there's no find here. Forget it, just trust me, it's gonna work. So it's actually .query find. Let's see. So Mongoose, find out. It's never a good idea if you land up at Stack Overflow. That's the first thing you search about it. You know, it's never good. I don't know what you're feeling about that. We've got 5 minutes. We're gonna finish it. I've got a lot of slides too. The advanced NoSQL part is left. So I think he's doing a lot of work here. We're not gonna do all that work, but let me just show you what needs to be done. People have a habit of complicating things. You're a senior developer if you simplify things. So don't follow a lot of the stuff that's out there. You know? To be honest, a lot of the stuff that you follow is written by evangelists. They're not even coders. So
You can do all kinds of secret stuff, right?
we're not recording?
Projector's off.
Oh! Projector's gone?
What do you think? Click off and then see.
We're not talking about some informal stuff?
Click the off.
I have a
Are we recording? Here, let me tell you some stuff before you
Click on PC.
bring up another question. Trash my image as a speaker. Okay. So, how many of you? Let me put this thing up, right? I'm gonna trust you guys. Do you guys follow Scott Guthrie? Do you know who Scott Guthrie is? You know who he is? Have you ever followed him? Like, is there anyone here who ever followed Scott Guthrie? You did, right? Anyone else? Like, can I have some hands here? What do you think about his blog? Pretty good, right?
Yeah,
You guys think he's got a
his
good
role's
blog?
changed, so it's not the same as it was a few years ago. His role's changed in the company.
It's definitely changed, right? But he doesn't write his own blog for the last 10 years.
Yeah, he's still writing code. Sure.
That's the thing. A lot of people that you actually follow don't even write their own blogs. So that was one thing I wanted to put across. Yeah, what's the question? Oh, it came back.
There we go.
How do you debug? How do you debug? WebStorm. So with WebStorm, you can actually go and run this thing and go debug, and you can actually click every single line here, and it'll come back over there.
Okay.
So it's pretty awesome.
Only WebStorm?
You could do your own thing, like there's not a node inspector. That's another NPM module. You can do that, but that only works with WebKit browser, so you're only stuck with Chrome. You won't have the greatness of IE there.
I like Chrome.
So, I mean, there are other options. I think even WebMatrix does it, but it's not as good as WebStorm. WebStorm is really good. With Sublime, I think you're not going to have much. Ben, do you like Sublime?
I'm Microsoft developer, so I use Visual Studio.
Oh, cool. Yeah, well, Visual Studio has some good support too.
Okay.
Check the IS Node package and other packages.
So I have just a quick question. When you do this get call after you do the post to the database, what if you're using like a SQL database or something that's slower? Is it okay to just update the model on the front end without making that get call?
Totally depends on your business. I mean, if you're Facebook, I'd do it, but if you are a legitimate business, I won't do it. Like, I don't want to say Facebook is not a legitimate business, you know, but the point is if you lose a post, you're not going to be mad at Facebook. You really can't be mad at Facebook. There's no real good customer service there, but you know, if you're selling something, you don't want to do that, right? Because the user thing has happened and it actually didn't happen.
Yeah.
So
Last inventory was sold out right before the hit.
oh yeah, especially when you buy flight tickets, you know, we all love that experience. Good question though. What else?
You know, so far we've been talking about the JavaScript executing on a browser. There's no reason why a client can't just run a Node.js and directly send post messages to the MongoDB or whatever the DB that's running on the server side.
Well, so that's where you will include authorization, authentication, all that stuff, right? So that's the part I haven't shown you yet, but again, you would do that. And again, if you want to do it in your real architecture, here's what you got to do. Your Node.js app should be on a server, and then you got to put your Mongo server on a tier 2 server, not the same tier server.
Right.
These guys should be able to open it only via a port, and they should have a very limited role to even access that thing, because with one call you can delete the database. So that's the other thing, you know, it's not just authentication, it's also authorization, and when the hacker comes into this system, you should still not be able to get to the database. And if you're very serious about your business, then put an API here on tier 2 and then put the real thing in tier 3. So that's what you would probably end up doing. Good question. Is your boss here? So I'm hiring guys, so like I said, you know, one thing that I actually do presentations for. I was on an H-1B visa, and Sanjay was too, and we worked together. And we're pretty screwed, like we were really not paid that well. And that was the time when actually you need money, right? I mean, and after some time you really don't need money, but because after that sometime money is just a number in your bank. But when you need that money, it's important. When you're having that baby, you know, I was having a baby, and I was like, I really need this money for this guy. So the employers didn't pay us well, but now I run my own company, and there's no one that pays better than. I mean, I can guarantee that because we're higher than Google's average salary. Right now, we're higher than Google's average salary. We have one guy less than $100,000 in our company, just one guy, and he's out of school. So the only reason I run my company today is because I want to help the developers like myself that I wasn't helped, and I want to help, and we want to spread this love around. So I need a little bit of help there from you guys. If you really know someone in need, or someone really needing a job or whatever, or he wants to go better in his career, we help people. I was at MVP Mix. I had a bachelor's in Hebrew guy. He came to me like 3.5 years ago. He had a bachelor's in Hebrew, no programming experience, he was 29 years old. He had 4 kids. He came to me through a recruiter. He said, hey, find him a job. I'm like, you're a recruiter, you can find him more jobs. Like, yeah, but he doesn't do any programming. So long story short, I trained him for a month, put him at a job, I mean right here in Dallas, Plano. LifeNexus was the name of the company. The guy's name is Noah Code. He worked there for 4 months, trained him for 1 month, put him at a job right after that 1 month. He worked there for 4 months. That's total 5 months experience when he got an offer of $112,000 from the CTO, Noah Code. And that guy's in Dallas. But long story short, he didn't join them. He kept working with me 3.5 years into this experience with no programming background and a bachelor's in Hebrew. This guy makes way more than 150K a year. And the reason I say way more because it's a little less than 200K. But I started coding when I was 6 years old. I had my first product when I was 14 years old. But in my lifetime, I did not make that much money until way later in my career. And when I did, all I did was to make sure that I opened the door to other people. But that example is not about being a rock star. It's about creating more rock stars like you. It's not about making money. It's about making money to other people because that's what counts, right? And I think the problem with our community is for a little bit of free pizzas. Seriously, I mean, to be honest, like user group started for me because another way to get free pizzas. Just kidding. The point is, for just free pizzas, you're losing $50, $60 an hour, and you don't even realize that. You know, so I think there's an awareness that needs to go in our community, and we need to help each other more than anyone else because the reason I'm able to pay more, and there were 5 guys at MVP Mix, and I'm not making that up. You were there? Did you hear those guys? When I did the keynote, right before the keynote? Were you there?
Yeah.
So Sanjay heard that, right? There were 5 guys over there. The first guy says he got a $22,000 raise. The second guy got a $30,000 raise. The third guy got a $40,000 raise. Fourth guy got a $60,000 raise in a year. And the fifth guy was $80,000 raise in a year. Right? How am I able to do that? Because the guys came to me from directly. You realize when you get $100,000 a job, and I'm nothing against recruiters. Nothing against them. I work with them all the time. Someone is getting a cut on you. If you take a full-time position, someone gets $20,000 right there, right? On 100,000. So if you're 150, he gets 30,000 right there. But if you go on a contract to hire, someone's making 50 bucks an hour on you, or maybe 100 bucks an hour. You don't even know. But if you come to me directly, all I'm doing is giving you the money I would have paid the recruiter. Who does it help? Not me. It helps you. And I'm actually giving you $10,000 more than what I would have paid the recruiter. Does that make any sense? And I'm not saying this because I'm trying to promote anything here. But if you start doing this in your community, how many lives you're going to help? In my lifetime, I had 1,500 people. I've helped 1,500 people get jobs. I haven't made money off of every one of them. You know, I've probably made money off of maybe 150 when I started doing my company. You guys refer people too. Don't you do that? You do that all the time, right? You refer people all the time. Well, why not keep the money in the community? There's nothing against recruiters. They help us quite a bit. Work with them too. There are good recruiters, there are bad recruiters. Good recruiter will put a good guy in the door. And he'll say, okay, I'll pay you what you want. A bad recruiter says, oh, you're going to charge me $45 an hour? I will get another one for $40 an hour. It's like saying, you know, I mean, it's simply like saying that, hey, here's your wife, but I've got another woman. Well, dude, I care about my wife. I care about the developer. You know? I'm like, seriously? You just compared me with another person without even telling me what that guy's, you know, skill set is. But at the end of the day, work with the good recruiters. Don't lowball yourself. Market is really good. If you want to switch a job, you know, I'm there to help you out. But keep your eyes open, man. I mean, you can help other people. That's my whole goal of doing any talk anywhere. I mean, that's the only thing I do it for. I want to be with you. I want to talk to you. I want to know your names. I want to be friends with you. That's the only motivation I come in here. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like technology, but you know what? I could do it at home too. I really come in here to network with you guys, and all those 5 people met me at some user group or the other. And today I feel happy about them because those are stories I can say. You know, you could be successful alone. You're not going to enjoy it. That's all I think. You know, I've spoken at Tech Ed. I've done a lot of these big things, and I'm done with all this. You know, like, where can you go when you're 33-year-old, your house is paid off and all that good stuff, you know, and you drive a Mercedes? After some time, you're going to go and look, I want to make friends. This is my way of buying friends. That's all it is. And there's a lot of people trying to make sure that you do not know this information. There are companies here. They will come and tell you, look, you're going to take a pay cut for getting a better skill set. And I did take pay cuts in my career many times. Not one time. I'm saying many, not a couple, not few. And I work with those companies too, but I've seen from inside what they do. I think there's time to open up and have these conversations, because here's the thing. In our culture, we talk about cars, but we don't discuss salaries. Isn't that a way of keeping you away? Why would an employer talk about it? You know, I could have talked about this thing 5 years ago when I was an employee. Well, I'm an employer. I talk about it. Why do employers don't talk about salary? Why do they not talk about compensating you right? Someone is greedy. Someone wants to make a lot of money there. One CEO makes 50 million, or you have 50 people make $1 million a year. You're never going to spend that money either. And that 100 billion that Apple has, I don't know what's going to happen with that. The point is, we're in communism. We don't realize we're in communism. In communism, the money is with the state. And with our communism, the money is with the companies. But it never gets to us, right? I think spread that word around, because look, I've thought about this many a times. I could be politically correct and be very famous. Or I could really burn myself up and talk about it and change 5 lives. And I've now changed a lot more than 5 lives. And that makes me feel a lot better than being politically correct and not talk about this. So that's all it is. It's a very selfish motive, and that's the only reason I'm here. Now you gotta judge what you think about me, but you know what? I'm already over it. So thank you guys. I'm around.